Hi students, this is Miss Ruiz. Today we're going to be taking notes and practicing unit rates. Whenever you see this symbol here, that means it's something that you definitely want to be writing down in your notebook that I'll be going through and checking for when I check your notes. So please make sure you title your next available page in your notebook with unit rates and write the date that you're taking these notes on. Pause the video, copy down the notes, and then follow along. Okay, so for unit rates, there's a few notes, a few steps that I want you to think about when we're doing every problem. First thing is I want to make sure that we are recognizing that we want to start every problem with words. Okay? So even though we're going to be doing calculations, the words that we start with will guide our problem and help keep us organized. The words that we're going to use are actually the units that are presented in the word problem. So for instance, units could be miles and hours, dollars and hours, uh, price per gallon, whatever they're talking about in the problem, the units that are being compared is what we're going to use to create our ratio. Okay, so before you start writing any numbers, we're always going to start with words. We're going to organize our problem with the units being presented in the word problem. The second thing I want you to think about, number two, is you're going to take a good look at the question that is being asked of you. So we're going to read the questions very carefully. And in every question, you're going to be asked how much for one of something. You'll be asked how many dollars per hour. When we see that word per hour, it's per 1 hour. So we want to know how much for one of whatever it is they're asking us. That unit that is being asked for one of, that's our unit rate. That's what we use to form the unit rate. And we'll have 1 in the denominator when we create that unit rate. Okay, so you'll see this in action when we begin, but just make sure that you're beginning to recognize that the actual unit rate will look like it'll be a fraction or a ratio where 1 is in our denominator with the other number in the numerator. Okay? And number 3, we're going to make sure that we end with words. So just like we begin organizing the problem with the words, that organization, then it's going to help us make sure that we're ending every problem using the words. So for instance, here's an example. After we do our calculation, we might find that it's 2.4 miles per hour. So we're going to end with words. Okay. All right, so we're going to start with some fairly simple and clear problems just to get the idea of what the unit rate looks like. The ones we're going to be working on later in this video and in class will be much more complex. The word problems will be in depth. We'll be using fractions and decimals. And so we're just going to use this to get the idea. Okay, so here, make sure you copy this down in your notebook. Here, I want you to remember that unit rates are ratios where we have two different units, okay? And we're always going to have, when we're creating our unit rate, a denominator of 1, so the price per 1 unit, okay? So here for number 1, we're given the information of 30 miles in 2 hours, okay? So that's our ratio that we're going to turn into a unit rate. And we start with words. So the words that are being presented are miles and hours. And I will know to put hours in the denominator because over here, if you look here, we're being asked to find the miles per hour. And that, when we say per hour, that's per 1 hour. So that is going to be my denominator. Hours or hour will be my denominator. That means miles will have to be the numerator. So we start with words. And now we're going to plug in the information that was given in the original problem. So in the original rate, we were given was 30 miles in 2 hours. So once you create the rate based on the information that's given to you in the problem, then you can create your unit rate. Now remember, for the unit rate, I need a denominator of 1. So the question you're asking yourself here is, how does this 2 become a 1? Well, if you divide a number by itself, it will be equal to 1. So I'm going to take the denominator and divide the entire fraction by the denominator. The entire fraction by the denominator. 30 divided by 2 would give me 15. And we're going to end with words. We know that this is 15 miles, because the numerator is miles, and the denominator, we're talking about hour. So we would read this as 15 miles per hour. And this is what I mean by ending with words. We would, because of the way we organized it, we understand that the miles are in the numerator, 15 miles per 1 hour, 15 miles per hour. So why don't you pause the video, try number 2 and 3, and then you can come back and check to see if you've got those correct. Alrighty, so let's take a look at number 2. We're given the information of 40 apartments on 5 floors. The question being asked, what is this equal to? How many apartments per floor? So for one floor, how many apartments would we have? That tells me that floor or floors will be my denominator, which means apartments, I'm going to abbreviate that, APT. Apartments would be in the numerator. The information originally given is 40 apartments on 5 floors. And now I'm going to create my unit rate with a denominator of 1. Okay. So if you notice, in order to get the denominator of 1, you're always going to be dividing the entire fraction, the entire ratio the entire rate, you're going to be dividing it by the denominator. 40 divided by 5 would give me 8. And if I write my words, the numerator, that is 8 apartments for 1 floor. Okay, so when I end with words, it would be 8 apartments per floor. For number 3, we're given 16 laps in 4 days. The question being asked is how many laps per day? That's for 1 day. So that means day is going to be the denominator, and the numerator would be laps. Now you just plug in the information given. That's 16 laps in 4 days. We're going to create our unit rate with a denominator of 1, which means we'd have to divide by 4 in order to get that denominator of 1. 16 divided by 4 is 4. And we end with words. That's 4 laps in the numerator in 1 day. And this helps us guide the sentence that we give as the answer. This would be 4 laps per day. Okay, so if you have any questions here, make sure you write them down and ask me. We're going to move further to now where we're looking at word problems. So make sure you pause the video. You want to make sure you title this Unit Rate with Word Problems. You don't have to write the entire question out, but please make sure you show your work. You number 1, 2, and 3 and show your work for each one. All right, so let's do number 1 together. 4 gallons of gas costs $12.80. That's the information given. Here's the question. What was the price of gas per gallon? So this per gallon here is what we're looking for. It's the question that's being asked. So we're going to start with words. And I know that since they're asking per gallon, gallon is going to be my denominator. And so the price will have to be the numerator. Now you just plug in the information given, $12.80 for 4 gallons of gas. And now you create your unit rate with your denominator of 1. In order to get that denominator of 1, we're dividing by 4. And $12.80 divided by 4 is going to give you $3.20. And we'll end it with words. So that's the price, $4. And 1 would be gallon. Okay, that would be $3.20 per gallon. Okay. So we end it with words showing the unit rate. All right, so why don't you pause the video and try number 2 and number 3, and then we'll do them together. Alrighty, so we have for number 2, the information given is a car traveled 480 miles in 8 hours. How many miles did the car travel per hour? So there's the question being asked. Hour is going to be my denominator, and miles will be in the numerator. Enter the information given, 480 miles in 8 hours, and now create your unit rate. So in order to get that one, we're dividing by 8. 480 divided by 8 would give you 60. So if I plug my words back in, I can see here that it is 60 miles per hour. Okay. For number 3, a baker baked 180 cookies in 3 batches. How many cookies did the baker bake per batch? So I want to focus on what is being asked per batch. That means for one batch. So batches will be my denominator. My numerator will then be the cookies. The information given tells me that there are 180 cookies in 3 batches. And now I create my unit rate with a denominator of 1. And I'm dividing the rate by 3. 180 divided by 3, 60. So there were 60. Oops, we're going to end with words here. So that would be 60. We'll end with words. We're going to select cookies, batch. And from here, I can create my statement that there are 60 cookies per batch. Okay. All righty. So again, if you have any questions, please write them down now and ask me in class. Now, the ones we're going to do now are more what we're going to be doing in class, and they're more on grade level. But the idea of what we've just done is exactly the same. So even though our numbers now we're going to be working with fractions and complex fractions, we're still doing the same steps, and we need to read the word problems in the same way. So let's make sure that we're understanding, hopefully now, what a unit rate is describing, right? When we're doing these unit rates, we're describing the amount for one, or the amount for one. Per one, or the rate when the denominator is 1. Oh, and I should have said, this paper I've handed out to all of the students in class, so you're not going to be writing this down on in your notebook. Here you should be working on the actual notes page that I gave you in class, and we're going to finish this page together as a class. Okay, so a unit rate is when our denominator is 1 and it's describing the amount for 1. Examples of that would be, for instance, if I'm looking at a price of something in a store and it costs 27 cents per ounce. I would write that as a unit rate with the 27 cents in the numerator and 1 ounce and 1 ounce, so 27 cents in the numerator, 1 ounce in the denominator. Or if I'm given 40 miles per gallon, I'm going to write that as a unit rate. That's shown as 1 gallon, and it's 40 miles in the numerator. Okay? So now let's take a look at what happens when we have fractions here. Because one of the things I want you to keep in mind is that in all of these unit rates, we have been dividing the denominator by itself in order to get 1. Well, when we have fractions, we're going to have to multiply the denominator by its reciprocal in order to equal 1. So let's see what this will look like. Marcus walks 1/3 of a mile. So here we're given the information of 1/3 of a mile in 1/6 of an hour. So my words are going to be miles and hours. And let's see which one of those is going to be the denominator. If Marcus walks at a constant speed, how long will it take him to walk 1 mile? There it is. They're asking for 1 mile, which means when I start with words, mile is going to be my denominator. That means hour will be the numerator. Okay, so you want to read through the word problem to find how you're going to set up your rate in order to be able to get the unit rate for the question that's being asked. Now we simply plug in the information that was given in the original problem. So it was 1/6 of an hour and 1/3 of a mile. Now here, after this, I'm going to still set up my unit rate with a denominator of 1. I'm going to move over here to the side so we can really think about how this is going to be equal to 1. When we are doing these, we divide by the denominator. However, dividing fractions, remember we always do keep, change, reciprocal. So if I'm doing 1/3 divided by 1/3, this will turn into 1/3 multiplied by 3/1. And that is going to equal 1. The 3's cancel out, and that will equal 1. So when we are using the unit rates, we're not going to do this. We're going to skip this step, and we're going to immediately multiply by the reciprocal. And if I multiply the denominator by the reciprocal, I will do the same thing with the numerator. Okay? So every time we're doing these with fractions, you're going to just multiply the numerator and the denominator by the reciprocal of the denominator. Okay? And that's how you get in your denominator equal to 1. And our numerator now, I can just, let me simplify this. 3 goes into itself once, 3 goes into 6 twice. And so I'm going to have 1 in the numerator and 2 in the denominator. That's 1/2. I go back to my words. That's a half an hour in 1 mile. And I would write this answer out as 1/2 hour per mile. So Marcus walks 1/2 hour per mile would be the correct way to end this. All right, so if you need to go back and watch that about the reciprocal and what's happening when we're dividing by fractions, please rewind and watch that again. We have gone over this a lot in class, but I just want to make sure that you really understand that point, that because we are dividing fractions, you're actually always ending up multiplying by the reciprocal, okay? Now, what I'd like for you to do is pause the video. You're going to do number 2 here and come back and see if you got it right. All right, so we have here at the grocery store, 2/5 of a pound of grapes cost $2. What is the price per pound of grapes? So I need to start with words, and I want to set up my words so that I'm creating my unit rate with the question being asked in the denominator. And here they're asking me, what is the price per pound? That means for 1 pound, how much does it cost? Well, that would mean then that pound will have to be my denominator. So I want to know how much for 1 pound, which means the price or the dollars, which is the symbol for money, is going to be in my numerator. Now that I've set my words up, I can just plug in the information that's been given in the word problem. So if I'm taking a look here, the price that is given is $2, and the pounds would be 2/5 of a pound of grapes. Now I'm going to set up my unit rate with a denominator of 1. And the question being asked here is, how does 2/5 become 1? Well, you have to multiply it by its reciprocal in order to get 1. And I will multiply the numerator also by the reciprocal of 5/2. And when I multiply the reciprocal, I will be able to cancel out these 2's. And so that leaves me with 5/1 or 5. And I end with words. This is $5 per pound. Okay. So my answer here would be that the price of grapes is $5 per pound of grapes. Per pound of grapes. All right, so the last thing I want you to do here, I'm going to leave you with a word problem that you guys are going to have to do on your own. So I'm going to start you off, give you some tips, and then I'll be looking for this in class. We're going to go over this together in class. So in this case, we have 2 pools that are leaking, and after 15 minutes, that's important, pool A has leaked 2/3 of a gallon. After 20 minutes, pool B has leaked 3/4 of a gallon. So we're comparing to see which pool is leaking faster. So you have a couple of things that you need to do. One of the things I really want you to take a look here at step 1 is you're going to find the volume in gallons per time in hours. And so what they are telling you to do here is, so for this one, what you want to do is, first thing you're going to have to do is convert the minutes to hours. So I'm going to help you with that one. So you have 15 minutes. 15 minutes is a quarter of an hour. And the way you set that up is you take the 15, it's 15 out of 60 minutes. So just simplify that. You can divide both of them by 15. 15 divided by 15 is 1. 60 divided by 15 is going to be 4. So this is 1/4 of an hour. And 20 minutes, you do the same thing. You would do 20 over the 60, and that's going to simplify to 1/3 of an hour. Okay, so you're going to want to use the 1/4 of an hour for the 15 minutes, the 1/3 of an hour of 15 minutes, and create your fractions there. So go ahead and try it. We're going to spend some time in class doing this one together. Please make sure that you show your work, you show me your steps, and that way we have something to go on when we're in class together. All right, I'll see you next class.